My name is Basham, and I was born in Los Angeles, California. I was born in July the 23rd, 1931. I enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1947, and when the Korean War broke out, I was at Camp Pendleton, California. So it would probably be about 19 at that time. And we formed a division. After the Second World War, they decimated the Marine Corps as they did every other service. So they had to bring in people from all over to try to form the 1st Marine Division. They took all the people that they had at the Camp Pendleton just about and formed the 1st Marine Brigade that went to Busan. I was with the division. I was with initially the 11th Marines, which is an artillery outfit. And we went over, we sailed in August, I don't recall the date, on the William Wiggle.
August of what?
Of 1950.
1950.
Yeah. And we went to Japan and reloaded into, I went to an LST, a Japanese LST as a matter of fact, and we sailed around. I was supposed to go to Busan and join the unit there, but instead we went around and went to Incheon to make the landing on September.
What day?
15th.
So you were in the Incheon landing?
Yes.
The original first one?
That's right.
So, what was the kind of order, or were you aware that you were going to land in Incheon?
No, did not.
What did you hear from your superiors?
Well, not very much. When we were in Japan, we were loading, reloading, and we didn't even know where we were going, where we were going. We always thought we were going to Busan. And people said, no, you're going to go up and make a landing in North Korea. And we didn't know. It was just rumors. When we got aboard ship and we were there, we were told afterwards that we were going to, after we came around to the typhoon and went up on the west coast of Korea, we were told that we were going to go into Incheon, and which didn't mean anything to us. It was just that it was a port on the west coast. We combat loaded and went in on the first day, and not much happening. There was some light resistance because I was with the artillery. We were getting that much. The infantry outfit who had gone in on the island over on the, I can't remember the name of the island that's right at the end of the harbor there. They went into there, and then we went in and went inland, and for several days things were moving on pretty rapidly. Then I was transferred to the infantry with the 5th Marines, and we went into the assault and seizure of Seoul.
You are walking too fast here.
Okay.
It's a historic day of Incheon landing on the September 15th.
Okay.
What was feeling when you first land into the seashore there?
I was scared.
And could you describe the scene there?
Okay, the scene, it was pretty chaotic. Some of the outfits were going in, and we had to go to the wall and climb the ladders to go up. I did not have to. We went into the side and went around that area on an LST and landed. We had some resistance. There were snipers shooting at us, but not much, because most of the infantry had cleared those areas out by the time we pulled into there. We pulled in, set up, and we're talking to the division, talking to the other people, and firing artillery toward the city.
So the American soldiers were actually waiting for you guys there?
Well, we came in approximately the same, within hours of each other. The infantry, was there ahead of us. The Marines that were ahead of there, and we set up, and then they kept going forward. And then as they would go forward, we would move forward with them, several hundred yards behind them. This went on for about a week, maybe. I don't recall exactly. And then I got transferred up to be with the infantry as a forward observer team for artillery. I was with an infantry company George Company, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, and we were in the assault at that time. So we would move up to an area, and then we'd leapfrog going in until we got bogged down, and well, we went across the river, and then we were on our way to Seoul, and we got bogged down there, and then we were calling in artillery support and support from the Missouri, which was out at sea, and then we went into Seoul. Going into Seoul, there was resistance going in, especially it's a city fighting, and you're going through houses and going, and of course Seoul at that time was all I remember was single-story houses. There was no big, the biggest building that I remember seeing was the Capitol, and our objective for my company was the Capitol. So we went down through the city and through the alleys and through the streets of Seoul, clearing all the resistance out as we
mapping out.
Yeah, as we did, clearing out everything going toward the Capitol, and then that morning we did the grand assault, took the Capitol building, raised the flag over the Capitol building, and we did have some snipers. We had a couple of people killed, a couple of people wounded from snipers, which we would send out patrols to clear out. We stayed there, I think it was one day, maybe more, and we started to do patrols in the city. When MacArthur was coming in, they kicked us out because we didn't look very good. I mean, we were pretty dirty, and you know, just we didn't want our pictures taken. They told us. So then we moved just outside of Seoul, outside the walls there, and we stayed there instead of a thing. And then we went to and spent the night in the university. I think it was a school. Anyway, we spent the night in the school.
Was it west or the east?
It would. I don't know. I don't recall. And then we went. We're part of the whole unit was doing a big security area all the way around the city, and then we went into by truck for a couple hours outside of Seoul, and then we got hit by machine gun fire. There was actually there were young kids. They were shooting at us with machine guns.
Young kids.
Young kids. They were the North Koreans had gotten them and put them there to shoot at us, and they were young kids. They were shooting.
Well, they were chained.
Yes. And so we got up there. We cleared that area out, and we up on the hill. We spent the night there, and strange thing happened. This was one of the things that happened that night. I was just so tired, and I had set my radio up right next to me, and I rolled over to sleep, and I woke up in the morning, and everybody thought I was dead because they'd had an assault on the hill, and I slept through it. My radio was full of holes. My sleeping bag had bullet holes in it. I wouldn't have a scratch on me. Nothing.
You slept through the night?
I slept through the night, through the assault and everything. I was definitely tired, you know. And but they thought I was dead because I didn't move. And so then in the morning, you know.
So was that around the end of September or early October? You recovered the Seoul September 28th.
Yeah. So it would have been late, probably early October.
Early October.
Yeah.
Before you go elaborate on how was the reception of the Korean people in Seoul City when you marching in? Remember anything?
Well, it was kind of sketchy, and the reason why I say that was that people were scared. There were still snipers, there were still wars going on, and then when we were doing our patrolling, there was an awful lot of Koreans who were getting revenge, if you will, against the South Koreans who had worked for the North Koreans, and sort of the Quisling type of people. And we'd come to an alley, we'd find several people beating up on somebody, you know, and we had Korean interpreters with us, and they said, "Don't worry about that. That's okay." You know, they were the bad guys. And we ran into several cases of that. The people themselves, you know, like when we were in the roads, they would wave at us and, you know, migu and all that kind of thing, which was, as I found out later, we're, you know, hooray for the Americans kind of thing. And we went into this little town, as I said, it's a little small village. We spent about a week there patrolling outside. And then we got, the vehicles and came back to Incheon. Incheon, and this would have been, I guess, it was in October. And got back to Incheon, reloaded onto ships, and sailed around to Wonsan.
Wonsan.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we talk about your another landing in Wonsan, what was the Seoul city like? It was when you were marching in.
Yeah. So it was, like I say, it looked like a small town with a one big building, you know. But it looked, you know, it had really been torn up. I mean, there were a lot of buildings that had been just destroyed, a lot of houses. Most of the people did not have any place to go, and those people who were there were just, you know, they were initially just dazed. They didn't know what was going on, really. It's like every place I've ever been that's been a battle. The refugees were many of them, and we would give them our sea rations and things like that. But once things sort of settled down, they were so happy to see us. You know, they were very elated over the thing.
What was the rationale to relocate the Marine through the sea rather than go straight up to the land?
Well,
to the Wonsan.
Okay, my understanding, the grand plan, which came from MacArthur's, was that the plan was to move north, and the idea was that the Marines would take the eastern side of the mountains, and the Army would go up the western side of the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Theoretically, they were supposed to be able to support one another,
mm-hmm.
which was stupid, because the mountains were too high and too big. It can't be done. You just eventually they could get over it. You know, by that time the battle would be over. So we pulled around, and the Korean Marines and Army had gone up the East Coast. They were there before us.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we moved in, and by that time there was nothing going on. And we moved by train to Hamhung, and from Wonsan, and then we went by truck mostly, and sometimes by foot, but going north. And we would, the commanding generals in the Marine Corps did not like MacArthur's plan, because they could see, as anybody could, that they would set us up on a single narrow road to the north, no way to support each other, stretching our supply lines to the nth degree, and theoretically, we were supposed to go up to the reservoir and make a left-hand turn and go to the west coast to help, help the Army go up. That was the plan. The landing in Wonsan was almost like a training express. We did the normal thing. We offloaded from the personnel carriers, the big ships that we had there, onto landing craft, and we circled and came in, and there were some people there to meet us, but we just came up, and we could see where the defensive positions on the beach, if the Koreans, Army and Marines had not cleared that area out before we got there, we would have had a terrible battle and a bloodbath, because the thing was nothing more than trench lines, one after the other on that beach. They would have met us, and barbed wire and what have you. But there was nothing there. I mean, there was.
Was Korean military ordered to be there earlier than the Marine?
I think the intent was we were going to be simultaneously, but because of the mines in Wonsan Harbor, we were delayed. We sailed up and down the East Coast for about a week, waiting to go ashore.
Huh.
And so in the meantime, as we were doing this, of course the Korean Marines and Army came up
And demining.
Yeah, we brought in the minesweepers to clean that out so they could bring the ships in. But in the meantime, the Korean armies moved up north and pushed the North Koreans out of the area.
Mm-hmm. So what was the main mission of your Wonsan landing? It wasn't just to keep the Wonsan under control, but where you were headed and what was the main mission to achieve?
Ours was to just get in and continue north to the Yalu River.
Yalu River.
Yeah, we didn't think we'd ever get there because there was no, once we got up there, we figured that the war would be over. As a matter of fact, after we landed at Wonsan and started moving up, we were told that we were probably home for Christmas, which was not happening.
But why Yalu? Why not Duman River? You were in the east side, called East Coast, and obviously the river up there is Duman River, not the Yalu River.
Yeah.
So why?
I have no idea. That's what we were told. And now whether that was just rumors that was going, because the actual specific mission sometimes was very unclear because it changed often. As we were moving north, like I said, the plan was we would leapfrog. A battalion would go up ahead, and you would go there, and then a regiment would move up, and then this kind of thing. So making sure we consolidated our areas as we moved up north. And my unit, we moved right straight up, and we went to the east of the Chosin. Rather than to the west. We went over the east side of there, took that area, we were patrolling out there, and we would run into firefights, but it would be quick, and then we would move up and there was nothing there, and it turned out it was the Chinese that had come down, and some of the North Korean remnants that were there. We would run into them periodically, and especially when we were patrolling up into the hills. But we went to the east side, and we ran into a little bit of opposition, but not much at that time. By that time, I think the Chinese had started hiding more than going. And then we stayed there for about a week. We moved over on the 27th. I remember that so very well, because that's where the Chinese is. So the Army came in, Task Force Faith of the Army moved in to the east side of the reservoir, and we
Task Force what?
Faith.
Faith.
Yeah. And then we moved out from there and went around to Udami, to the west. And the orders were that we were to stay there and then start, rather than moving straight up north, we were going to go to the left, as I said, to go over to support the Army. Because in the meantime, the Army had stepped into some terrible battles on the other side of the mountains. We got to Udami the morning, early morning or late morning
of
the 27th
of October.
No, of
November.
November. When the reservoir, we got hit by the Chinese.
25th of November.
Well, the 25th was when they started hitting over on the other side, but we got hit badly on the 27th.
27th.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, we came around to Udami. The 7th Marines and the 5th Marines and part of the 11th Marines were up there. They were trying to consolidate the thing. And the 1st Marines, which was the other regiment, was spread out all the way back to almost to Wonsan. And
so total, how many Marines were there?
One division.
One division.
Yeah,
so about
25 to 30,000.
30,000.
Within Korea, all because a third of them, if you will, were with the 1st Marines, and they moved. They were on to handle the main line of supply and so on. They were at I can't even name the town now, but anyway, they had several places along there on down, and we were as far as you went. The 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines were in the point at that time. We, as a 3rd Battalion, were going to leapfrog them the next day. So we were in reserve. The battalion headquarters was right outside of the road, and we were sitting on the other side of the road, just in tents. I mean, we had pup tents. We put up our pup tents for the night because we were in reserve. the 7th and most of the 5th Marines were all online, and we were going to go take the point the next morning. Now, in the middle of the night, I was on guard at the time. All of a sudden, over the top of the hill behind our battalion headquarters, this mass of people, Chinese, came running down the hill to go down, and we all scrambled, got up, and I got the people up, and we were on this side of the road, and like I say, we were still supposed to be in reserve, but we were on this side of the road waiting to move. In the meantime, the Chinese had come down and come through our battalion headquarters, killed our executive officer and a lot of people. We were then directed, we took and ran across the road, went through the headquarters, kicking the Chinese out of the place, chasing them back up on top of the hill until early in the morning. And we were getting sniper fire more than anything else. I was sent back down with our group, our company. We went back up and to set up a observation post to get up there to call in artillery so we could bring artillery support more accurately. And we got on the other side of the hill about 3 quarters, and then we came under a lot of fire. So they pulled us back down from there. But there were bodies all over the side of the hill, from the Chinese and both Americans. And we got pulled down, and then they shuffled us around consolidation, and within a couple of days later, the decision was made to go back, to pull out. Well, at that time, we knew that we were surrounded. When we first went up there, we didn't know we were surrounded, but it turned out...
You were completely surrounded?
Yeah, we were surrounded. And we found out later one of the major goals of the Chinese was to actually destroy the 1st Marine Division. They figured if they could destroy the 1st Marine Division, they would do several things. One of it was psychological. So we started moving that. We were moving down, and we were more or less part of the convoy going up on the sides of the hill, providing support. And we would get periodic roadblocks, getting shot at, by snipers and what have you. And I got down. We got down almost to Coterie, and Coterie. I don't remember the name of the town now, but anyway, the first major thing there, we were on the road for probably, I don't know, 4 days, 5 days, whatever it was. I lost track a long time ago. And just before we got in there, we went back up to the hill, and I got blown off the hill and hurt my leg, and then I had ended up with frozen hands and feet. And then I got taken down the convoy and went down to Hagaru, and then they flew me out from there. But the convoy themselves moved into into Hagaru, and
what do you mean flew you out? Helicopters?
No, they had a small airfield that they built, that the Seabees built, and they brought in C-47s.
In the middle of combat?
Yes.
They built the runway there?
They built a runway. There was one there, small, but they extended it during the interim while they were moving up there. They kept improving it, and they made it long enough they could bring in a C-47.
C-47?
Yeah.
Wow.
And most of them, or not all of them, but quite a few of them were flown by Navy chiefs who were pilots. They used to have enlisted pilots in the Navy and the Marine Corps during the Second World War. Many of these guys, because most of the Air Force guys were not familiar with trying to fly off of a short runway. And these guys knew what they were doing. They did it all the time on the carriers. So they flew me from there down to, I think, Ham Hung, but I'm not sure. I think, and there they took care of my problems that they got to take care of right away. And then they flew me from there to Japan. And
were you wounded, right?
Yeah.
Where?
In my leg.
Leg,
yeah.
And was it gun?
No, it was more from mortars kind of thing.
Mortars.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on the side of the hill. I got blown off the hill and landed down the thing, and then I was there for a while. And unfortunately, I was having a problem with frostbite at the time, and that just made it worse. I had frozen hands and feet and things. So they flew me to southern Japan, and then by train to Yokosuka, and then from Yokosuka, I was flown back to the States.
When was that?
That was in December of 1950.
December of 1950.
50. Yeah.
What was Allied Air Force strike against Chinese? Were there any?
Yes, mostly. You know, there were mostly carrier planes that came over. They were off of the Navy, and they were flying in there with F-4s and some prop jobs that were there. And I think there were other services were involved. I mean, other countries, their people were involved, because with us there were a number of there were some Koreans up there in Chosun, and because we met some Korean up there, which we relieved, and they pulled back, and I believe I've heard that there was other Air Force providing support to our convoy coming out of there.
But that didn't really help.
Well, it did a lot.
Too many people there, right?
Yeah, well, that did help from the point of view that the air support helped a lot, because it kept these massive, during the daytime, the Chinese had to stay hidden, so we could move during the daylight without having this thing. Because if they moved any place or lit a fire or anything like that they could see it, they drop napalm on them, you know. So they learn very early they don't want to do that. So
how many survived the Marine there?
I don't know totally. I know that my company that I was with, until it was reinforced, we were down to probably 50 people, if that many.
Wow.
For all reasons. Some of them, not everybody was killed, but wounded, and then when we got down to Hagaru, an awful lot of them, because of frostbite, we did not have the right kind of equipment for it. About everybody got it, because we used these shoe packs with a felt liner, and it would perspire, and then of course you were pinned down, and your feet would freeze. And you take out these felt things, and there's supposed to be a piece of ice, and that's what you had your feet on.
Did you wear Mickey Mouse boot?
Yeah.
And still it didn't work?
It didn't work, because what happened was that there was no way to ventilate. They didn't ventilate, nor did they drain.
And you have to constantly change the socks,
if
right?
you had them, yeah. So,
but out of supply.
Yeah, well, if you had some extra socks, you take them, put them inside, and to try to dry them off, and when you could. But there was no available supply of getting new socks or exactly as we were coming out. Once you got out, for idea there was up there at UDMNE. I remember I did get a pair of socks. They had a big pile of stuff. They were burnt. They burned all the extra stuff, and if you wanted it, if it was there, take it. But if not, they burned it all so that the Chinese did not get it. But other than that, I always felt that I was confident that I was going to make it. It was just it was the bravado of being a teenager, you know, under those circumstances, and with my Marine Corps training, it just I always felt that yeah, I was going to do it. I'm coming back. But again, it's just there were quick occasions. I can't say that I was always like when things got really tight. We really did some situations where the Chinese were overwhelming numbers. You were firing and you're scared, but you just did it, kind of thing. I know people who can tell you in detail where they were and what they did exactly at any moment during that. And I tell people I don't remember. All I remember is being told, go up and do this and do that, and I did that. You know, it was never thinking about the big picture or any of that kind of thing. It was the only, my universe was myself and the three guys on either side of me. That was my universe, and so that's where I.
So you were hit November 27th,
yeah.
And then you will flew.
Actually, I was hit actually about About the 29th, something like
No, I mean the whole unit, the
Oh, yeah,
whole Marine by the
27th.
Chinese 27.
27th.
And then when was the date that you were flew out?
Oh, I can't tell you that. It was probably a week.
A week.
Week or so later, yeah.
Right. During that week, how many times were you able to eat?
Oh.
Did you have enough sea ration there?
Well, most of them were frozen. That was the problem. And
Right.
no way to heat them. I ate a lot of Tootsie Rolls, and which they inadvertently dropped, cases of Tootsie Rolls to us. And you put the Tootsie Rolls in your pocket, and they warm up, and you could eat them. But I remember having a can of beans that I put in my parka and warmed them that way so I could eat some of them. But I don't know. You look at a lot of times you didn't eat the canned stuff, you eat the crackers and things like that. But when we were coming out, they didn't issue any rations. I mean, there were some there, and people would get them. But there was never a time when I could say I sat down and had a meal until we got into Hagaru. In Hagaru, they gave us some warm rations. It was up to us. There was not. We weren't depending on anyone coming in and doing things for us. We felt, we're going out. We're fighting our way out. We're going to get out of here. We're going to do it. And then I know there was support. There was support when they dropped the bridge, and they had to cross the thing on the way down, and things like that. Yeah, the support that was required. But primarily, it was it's us against them, and we're going to make it. When the Chinese came at us, for example, as we've noticed later, many of the Chinese did not have weapons. The concept I've been told was that when somebody ahead of you gets shot, you take his weapon and go on. So they did not everybody did not have weapons. And they just came, at a row. I do know that, many of them, they had like rope wrapped around them, kind of thing, which to give them sort of a bulletproof vest, if you will, because the carbine did not have hitting power, and they hit that thing, it might eventually kill them, but it was not going to stop them. That was always a problem. That's why many people got rid of their carbines and had the M1s, because they had much more hitting power. But when I saw the Chinese prisoners that we'd gotten, or we came across one with, he was wearing tennis shoes, just his feet were in cakes of ice. He had, come down trying to, get help from us, and many of those, they did not have hardly anything. They were fighting, but I guess that was their way of doing things. I mean, they a handful of rice and a bunch of bullets and go, And the biggest problem they seem to have is they had a single plan, and whether that plan worked or not, that was what they're going to follow. So when they would come down a road that they saw that they're going to get shot at, and where we would have gone around, they would still come on that same road, that kind of thing. I was a professional Marine. I started a career in the Marine Corps. I've been in other war zones, Vietnam and what have you. It's an enemy. It's somebody that's up there, and yes, I would have killed them, And maybe when I first returned from Korea, I might have had, but it's been 60 years ago, and I have been through too many things in my life to allow something like that to control my life. I do know people today who hate the Japanese from the Second World War. They just, and I'm not that way. I cannot hold that kind of a grudge. I dislike what they do. I dislike what they did over there, and I would go back, if that would help them to regain what they have today. Yes, I was almost recalled to active duty for Desert Storm, even after all these years, and because of my background. But no, it's not that kind of a thing. I don't personalize the Chinese in that way.
Have you talked about this desperate week at Changjin Reservoir to your family members?
No.
You never?
No.
I mean, you have a family, right?
Yes. Yeah. Not really.
Haven't they asked you about it?
Sometimes, and I answer the question that they ask, without embellishment. Were you ever shot at, Dad? Yes.
Why not? Why you
I
haven't?
don't know. It's just something. It seems like the only time we ever discussed the Korean War or any other war is when I'm with Korean veterans. To talk about what we did and where we were and who we were with. Sometimes funny things, sometimes serious things. But other than that, I don't. It's the same thing with Vietnam. I don't discuss Vietnam things.
Would you be willing to shake hands with the Chinese soldier who fought at the time
Sure.
in around Changjin Reservoir if it is somehow arranged?
Sure, absolutely. I have no, I don't hate the individual soldier.
Mm-hmm.
The individual soldier is just like me. Like I say, I was a PFC and they were a private, and he had a sergeant that says, you go shoot at this guy, and my sergeant says, you go shoot at this guy. We were a means to an end. There was no face to it, I'll put it that way. I couldn't say, if he came up to me, somebody came up to me and hit me in the face, I'd hit him back, and maybe I'd try to really do a job on him, and I would be upset with this guy. But because of someplace way back when, we shot at each other and didn't know each other, didn't know anything. No, I don't have any real hatred. That's like disliking somebody because they do something that that I dislike, and that's just not my way of thinking.
Any regret during that Changjin battle or anything out of Korean War service?
Not at all.
Not at all.
No. I've thought about the war many times, and how it's maybe changed me or made me the man I am today. I'm unhappy with some of the things that have gone on about it. The way people took the Korean War as it was.
Yeah, I mean forgotten. And was somebody call it conflict or police action?
Police action, yep.
And it's not that, right?
No, absolutely
it's a
not.
war.
It's a war, no matter which way we want to call it. And as a matter of fact, even the U.S. government had changed their name to the Korean War. It was always called a police action or anything. As a matter of fact, even some veterans organizations did not allow Korean veterans to join their organizations. So because of all of that going on, officially it is a Korean War. Now, it was not a war constitutionally correct because it was never actually declared, nor is it ended, it still exists.
Why is it important to correct that? Not police action, not conflict, but war.
I think it's more from a personal thing than it is anything else. I think I have to look at myself and say, no, I wasn't a policeman. I was a Marine, and I was up there doing my job, as a Marine and fighting the bad guys, whoever they happen to be. It's not like a police officer on the corner going after the drug dealers downtown. It's a different mental attitude as far as I'm concerned, and I think it's very important that people understand that a couple of things. The result of that war, and that's why to Korea, is something that is just unimaginable. When I saw the devastation in Korea, and what I have seen when I was stationed in Korea again in 1976 for about I was there for about 6 or 7 months. I lived in Yongsan, and I was with Sustak, a special U.S. liaison advisor Korea. It was a intel type job. But I was up there. And when I was there, I had weekends off a lot of times, and so I would take tours. And I went on many, many tours down and south, seeing areas that I remember. And the one that I didn't never get to, for some reason, I never went to Incheon, and it was right there. But I was outside of Seoul.
Maybe that was the easiest time for you, right?
Yeah.
Just landing.
Yeah. But we went down, and I went all around Busan and two other places, and saw the fantastic development that the country has come through. And I have met interesting people who were there. A short story, which is kind of interesting. When I was there in '76, I was there for the Korean Marine Corps birthday. And the commandant of the Korean Marine Corps invited all the Marine officers that were stationed there to a party at his house. And the first thing that happened, that we were up there in the house, and I was standing at a long table, and this Korean general came up. He was a Marine Corps general, and I don't remember his name really, but he spoke English, and we were talking. And it turns out that he had been drafted, if you will, to be an interpreter for my battalion in Korea. Now, I didn't know him then. He was at battalion headquarters or anything like that, but he knew all the people that I knew. The battalion commander and all those kind of guys. And he was a Marine Corps general at the time. And so we were talking about this different people that I was just astounded at people that he had been at the reservoir, he had been all over and that thing. And then the other thing that happened was that it turned out there was one more Korean officer than there was American officers, and they made a general officer leave because they wanted to make the balance. The commandant of the Marine Corps was just livid because somebody had come and shouldn't have come or something like that. But it was up there. But I got to see the city, and I used to have to go down to the embassy a lot. So I would go down into Seoul, and I would be down into the area that I was actually in, like the Capitol building, and where I was, where the flagpole was. I slept right there, and things like that. The place is, and this was '76, and they tell me that it's expanded since then, but just fantastic, from watching. And then the appreciation of the Korean people, and I've told this to I don't know how many people, but the only country in the world, of all the wars we have fought, and all police actions or whatever they want to call them, the only country that has ever said thank you.
Why is that? I think that it should be natural to say thanks.
I thought so too.
To the people who fought for them, especially, they knew nothing about Korea before.
There are some small pockets. There's a town in Poland, for example, where a guy is buried. He was a pilot, and he did everything, kept from crashing into the town, and they did the Second World War, and they got his body, they buried him. They got a statue to him and everything else, in honor of this one guy. And I've been other places, little things, but as a whole, officially the country, the people, have been just phenomenal from that point. And I have been all over the world. In the MOS that I had in the Marine Corps, I was stationed in Turkey, I was stationed in Germany, Japan, China, whatever. And that is the only place that I have ever been, where people still come up and say, thank you.
Would you be willing to say enough is enough? There are many other issues to be resolved, but still, can you say, let's replace the armistice with the peace treaty?
Yes, I would think so. I can imagine and guess the reasons why it has not happened, based on just the current regime in North Korea, especially the previous regime. The young boy, it's kind of hard to tell which way he is going to go, although he is cleaning out some of his father's cronies and so on. And so we may see some changes based on that. He's very young and very naive, I think, in thinking when he saw how his father was. So I think he's going from that route. but I think he's seeing some of the realization that things that he would like to have, he can't get in his country. He has to go out of the time, and looking from that point of view. The generals up there, I think, are controlling the country, and the reason why they got beat, and it bothers them a lot, and it's very hard. But I think that, in my mind, I think that ultimately it's going to happen. If somebody had told me in 1945 or so that the Russians and us would be friends, or at least not enemies, I would have probably laughed at him. So I think that things are happening, and there are little things that seem to be happening that were good for a while. There was some allowing to go across the border to see families. I know that stopped here recently, and then of course all of a sudden the whole thing blows up again when they shoot at the island. These things, went on. I used to go up to the DMZ once in a while, and when I was there, and we would, and we talked to some of the guys that did the patrols along there, and every once in a while, they get shot at. I was in Korea during the time when they had the tree cutting situation, when the Americans got killed, and then they had the
1976.
Yeah, 76. One of the highlights of the Korean War, it was to me one of the biggest things about the Korean War that I was in Vietnam, and I've been in other smaller things, the Dominican Republic and a few places like that, and there was never any tangible, I didn't see any tangible gain. Things in Vietnam just were too political into it, just did not turn over. But there's so much about the Korean War, and looking at South Korea today, it is fantastic. There's this map that I always loved, which shows the lights in the world, and it shows the Korean Peninsula, and you see South Korea. It's just like the Milky Way, and up here there's maybe a light here and a light there. Nothing. You can see the differences there, and I know that people who I've even come across that from North Korea, that they're not very happy,